Sports 2.0. I am Alan Moore. Like to wish our Orthodox followers Christos Voskres, Christ is risen. So it's Easter here in Russia and for Orthodox people around the world. So what's been going on since we were last chatting to you guys? Well, quite a bit. Sad news, which we mentioned he was ill. And sad news, the passing of Norman Hunter, the ex-Leeds United player and English international, age 76. He passed away from coronavirus. So our thoughts are with his family. An awful lot of discussion about what's going to happen with the football season in particular. For example, the Brighton owner, Tony Bloom, said you can't relegate teams now as it's going on. So we're going to see about that. Ian Wright is complaining that football, especially the Premier League, is everybody's punching bag. So go figure. I think Ian is best to keep his mouth closed because last week he walked into the Arsenal doping scandal and today something different. There's an awful lot going on. Bill Beaumont, the head of World Rugby, has said that coronavirus is, he said that it's a reality check for the whole world and gives us time to think and to slow down. I guess that's something that a theme that all of our guests have been discussing the last little while. The very, very sickly Simone Biles, the American gymnast who has a plethora of illnesses and ailments, including ADHD, which forces her, of course, to take that really, really good medicine, which increases the focus that a lot of athletes seem to be doing as well, especially in sports like shooting, archery, and, of course, gymnastics. She's crushed because she can't compete at the Olympics this year. Poor Simone. But then again, it'll give her time to work on her health. We're going to speak a bit later on about the USADA virtual testing. Now, put it like this, you ask an athlete to test themselves and send in their results or, send their samples. I don't know. I mean, it's already quite light touch testing in America. And now this. It always seems to have a little link to a certain Dr. Death who we discussed before on the show. So let's see what's going to happen with that. A racism scandal in reverse breaking out in boxing, and American Devin Haney, he turned around and started making fun of Vasyl Lomachenko. He said he would never lose to a white boy. Now, of course, people are thinking, hold on, you shouldn't be saying that. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. And unfortunately, the 21-year-old just can't keep his mouth shut, said it's not racism. And the more he speaks about it, the worse it kind of gets. But we'll talk about it later. Okay, so we'll go straight away out to, we'll stay in Moscow to begin with because he's sitting there in quarantine. I think he's in Ashgabat, of course, in Turkmenistan. Double N, good morning, how are you?
Good morning, Alan. It's good to be here, and at the same time, as you can see in the background, my little Ashgabat.
So there's actually mountains right beside Ashgabat.
Yeah, exactly. That's a mountainous area, so it's a very beautiful scenery. Like, I advise you to go.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, once the lockdown is lifted, we'll go to Ashgabat. Okay, and further away, actually, kind of, I guess it's kind of maybe parallel or like vertical to Turkmenistan. to Andrew Flint. Andrew, how are you doing?
Oh, not too bad, Alan. Not too bad. How are you doing over there?
Good. Moscow, of course, we were working the last couple of days, and then Moscow is just not. It's locked down, but very kind of busy in some points and not busy in other points. Very, very strange. Very, very strange.
But, as I understand, Alan, people getting on buses are being sensible and not sitting directly next to the only other person on the bus. They're social distancing on public transport. That's right? Yes. Yeah,
except in my case, where a guy got on. There's only 3 of us on the bus. 4 including the bus driver. This guy gets on and sits right in front of me. And I'm like, what is wrong with you, you fool? And he's sitting there with his, I honestly, if it wasn't, I was the next stop. If I wasn't, I would have mentioned, get up, please. I was just, but the problem was it was like a long distance from one stop to the next. I just couldn't believe it. The guy just sat down for himself. Okay, we're going to start with football. Andrew, straight to you before we go into round up Turkmenistan and Tajikistan with Double N. Andrew, Premier League had a meeting on Friday, I believe?
Yes. They met to try and try and thrash out a provisional timetable for finishing the season in the event that is what they do. We still don't have a definitive answer, and the result of the meeting was basically nothing. Nothing could be conclusively decided because the day before, the UK lockdown was extended by 3 weeks, the measures of restricting people's movement. So that was the day before. So realistically, what can you expect clubs to decide? I don't blame the clubs in this instance because there's just too much uncertainty at the moment. Personally, I think the only way forward is to come up with a number of different options for different timescales, so that when any answer is announced, at least there is a workable option ready to choose from. But like you mentioned at the top of the show, the Brighton chief executive has added his voice to quite a number, saying you can't just simply decide relegation or promotion now, because and either way, whether you relegate who is in the bottom three now, or if you don't relegate people who are spending above their means, it's just it's a absolute nightmare. But nothing has been decided. So that's really the only news is that there is no news about a definitive date or plan for dates. The end of August is when people would like to be done by. That's my understanding. And by comparison, the Bundesliga, they've been back training already. And the clubs have said that Germany are going to roll out 1 million tests per week. That's their target. They need 20,000 to effectively run the Bundesliga. Their plan is to have 3 centres, 3 clubs that have on-site medical facilities, training facilities, accommodation, and have the testing for all the players, and behind closed doors, of course. And they are hoping to start within a matter of weeks as opposed to months. The Premier League isn't at that stage because there just isn't the testing facilities or capacity.
Okay, so in Germany, basically, they fair enough. I mean, yeah, they've been back training and so on, but then there is the risk, and Bundesliga doesn't operate on its own, so they're going to have to try and obey what the government are going to do in Germany as well, and each land in Germany as well. I know they've been speaking about, for example, in Hesse, where there's quite a few clubs there, obviously, in Eintracht Frankfurt top flight, that they are going to restrict movement further if this happens, because I know that even though it's money and so on and so forth, they are very, very nervous about it. I know that there was a couple of very interesting, just before the weekend, on Friday I think it was, that Arsenal are the first team to agree to pay cuts. Now, at the same time, they've been told by the PFA, the Footballers Union, not to take pay cuts, but the Arsenal players themselves are going to, voluntarily take pay cuts. Double N, as an Arsenal fan, do you think that's good that the players are actually volunteering for this?
Sorry?
You didn't hear? I said, okay. So basically, I said about the Arsenal players are volunteering to take pay cuts. Do you think it's a good thing?
To be honest, I don't think that body which is over some teams in any league should direct their players or their teams. What should they do or how should they do? In my opinion, it should be like in recommendation form. So if players decide, if they collectively team up and decide to give something for a good cause, which I think was the case in Arsenal, so I think it's not a bad thing. So I think other teams can look up to them and decide that they can contribute somehow in a similar way. Maybe not exactly like that, but it's different. It's difficult time, so everyone have to contribute how they can. So I think it can be done.
Okay, Andrew, is it a good thing if the Arsenal players take a voluntary pay cut?
On balance, I'd say it's better than it is worse, because it sends a message of, look, at least we're making some effort. As I understand, they are offering to take a pay cut on with the proviso that if they qualify for the Champions League and certain performance-related targets are met, then they will be reimbursed, which actually I think is the right thing. I think that's a more sustainable offer all round. In the short term, the short term is when help is needed to help pay non-playing staff, but they themselves as employees, which the sneering and targeting of Premier League footballers because of the level of their salary is starting to grate with me, to be honest. It's a lazy, easy target. And if they should do their socially, morally responsible thing, which is what they are doing, but they shouldn't give up their right as workers to have their salary. I wouldn't give up a penny of my salary unless it was a matter of life and death. I mean, I just think I don't like that. So I do think it's probably on balance a decent thing. It is less than what the Premier League are proposing, but I think the Premier League are proposing too much. They're proposing 30% pay cut, which I just think is over the top, because it should be more down to donations rather than cutting salaries overall. That, for me, is a bigger part of the problem.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. And what people, have to understand is that many players are already donating and helping out. So, this kind of like mandatory thing, it is difficult. A voluntary thing, yeah, it works. And okay, as I mentioned at the top of the show, Ian Rice had said that the Premier League is a punching bag. That is the truth. It is a punching bag, and it's an obvious target as well, because there's nothing else happening. And also, I think we have to remember strongly and always come back to it, that most of the players, no matter where they're from, whatever country, who are playing the Premier League, they are usually from a lower class background in that socio-economic sense. If that's the case, the people who are like, who are sneering and are demanding this, they're usually from a upper middle class background, and they're stirring it. Now, they're not going to say the same thing about rugby players who are on good salaries. They're not going to say the same thing about chief executives who are on very good salaries. They're not going to say the same thing about, non-domicile tax exiles who are basically running around and hiding their money offshore. They won't say that. They're not going to turn around and say, hold on, Google, pay your money here. Hold on, Apple, you owe X amount of taxes. They won't do that. They won't do it because, again, yes, as Ian Wright said, okay, we might disagree. Ian, maybe the doping got to his head a bit too much, but, slamming footballers is very much a class issue. And, you can almost feel how they're doing it. Like the scandal breaks out. I mean, we'll speak about now in a few minutes about USADA. Most of the people who are being tested on that, who are now offering for testing, they're like swimmers. And they're the most suspect, dodgy people going. I mean, one of the people they rolled out was Katie from this upper middle class family. Goodness gracious. I mean, there's not only question marks around her, there's more question marks around her than the Riddler in Batman. Well, the old, if anyone remembers, I think Jim Carrey played the Riddler actually. Oh no, yeah, I think he did. Okay, we'll move on slightly, a little bit, to another form of football. Well, it's football, but not quite as we know it. It's in Turkmenistan, Tajikistan. Double N, what happened in Tajikistan, and what have we got to look forward to in the Yuqori Liga in Turkmenistan?
Exactly. Yeah, Alan, as we know, Tajikistan League started on April 5th, right after the Super Cup, which we also previewed in our show. So to remind, Istiklal won that match 2-1. So after that, Istiklal was in a good shape. So it thrashed a team from, I think it was, Dushanbe, is 7-0. So on the second round, it won another team 2-0. So they didn't concede any goals so far. So now coming up, they have a good momentum in this round. So they're going to play today at 5 p.m. Moscow time. They're going to play against Hatlan. So Hatlan is it's a runner-up right now. Actually, they have the same amount of points right now in the table, but they only have this goal difference between them. So it's going to be like a little bit early clash between the two leaders who are face-to-face in the beginning. So moving to Turkmenistan, Yuqori Liga, as you said. So there we have also one interesting game which is happening today. It's Altınasır versus Köpekdag. Köpekdag is actually right behind me. Oh. So it's the name of mountain. Yeah.
Ah.
Both of them are teams. So it's going to be interesting because Al-Nassr is reigning champion, as you know, and Köpenick have also this legacy of 6 championship. Like they have 6 titles, as the same number with Al-Nassr. So it's going to be interesting, and I think let me see about the time. Yeah, it's going to be at 3 p.m. Moscow time. We will post the link in the description, or we'll post in social media. So I hope they will like broadcast it. I really hope, because there is no any confirmation about that. But I just hope they're gonna broadcast.
Which they're both from Ashgabat, aren't they?
Yeah, they're both from Ashgabat.
So it's Ashgabat Derby to kick off the season. Which team is yours?
Actually, there are 2 teams from my city, but they're how to say, underdogs in this. So for so many years, I think they're gonna play tomorrow. So they're playing tomorrow against some strong teams from Balkan, but the Balkan teams are actually teams which take on some serious, they go to serious AFK championships. Like they travel abroad. I've seen their match one time. It was in Cambodia. They really showcased a really good match there. So it was good to see them.
That's the AFC, the kind of the Asian equivalent of the Champions League, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, no, it's a good level. And what are the 2 teams from your city?
It's Energetic and Merv.
Merv, okay. Energetic and Merv.
Yeah, it has this electric station, which is earlier the workers of that station were they used to play there. So actually, one thing that I noticed while analyzing the 2 regions that are we have 5 regions, so only 3 of them are represented. So two regions are not represented at all in the Yokori Liga. It sounds like a little bit unfair, but I hope it's a fair picture of it, like how it stands. But
okay.
The good thing is, just one thing to add, the team which is not present in Yokori Liga, it's actually the place where they keep these current quarantined people in my country. So no team from there is playing. So it's a good hope that the situation is stable.
Okay, that's good. Okay, Andrew. On Friday we had a chat. It went up yesterday. Went up on Saturday with Alexander Zotov about the current goodwill drive going on here in Russia, and he also mentioned that they are looking to go back to they're discussing, should I say, going back to the summer season. So instead of going over the year, it'll be summer season. The main, many reasons. One of them will be that the team that the budgets, because most of, especially second division teams, are funded centrally or by the region or the city or even district. So the budget is set for the year, and it's easier. Right now it's set over 2 years. And then, of course, weather as well, because it's very, very difficult, and a long break between the seasons and so on and so forth, that they're basically saying that it'll be easier and it'll save clubs in the second divisions, especially third tier. A return to the summer season, would that be a good thing, especially out in Siberia and out in Tyumen? Would that work for local football, especially at the second division level?
I mean, I'm in favour of that as a concept for the majority of the pyramid. I mean, out here, we have very, very rarely actually had matches postponed in Tyumen, but that's only because we have an all-weather pitch that has underground heating, and even then, it struggled. There was one match I remember about 4 years ago that was in danger of being called off. But then the vast majority of teams don't have those facilities, and it is unplayable. It's just, I wouldn't say disgraceful, because it's not the club's fault. There's very little they can do. So I think a return to the summer season makes a lot more sense for the sustainability, as Alexander says. It's the argument that it takes the Russian system out of line with European leagues. I think it's a very weak one, to be honest with you. Maybe a few top players just might possibly be less likely to sign in January. But even then, which top players? I mean, top players in Europeans top European 5 leagues are actually going to move to Russia anyway. We're not in the Hulk, Axel Witsel signing era. So the winter transfer window still has players who are looking to move. And even then, we're only talking about benefiting a small handful of Russian clubs, whereas these summer months are much more, like you mentioned, with the budget, with the geography, with the weather. I think it just makes a whole lot more sense. So personally, I'd be in favour of it. And I don't want to be callous about this, but the situation we're in at the moment is almost an automatic opportunity to slide into this system. If we're delayed for a while and we have to restart only in, for just off the top of my head, August, maybe, then, August, September, October could finish the season and just simply move into it that way. It's not ideal for everybody, but I think it would work.
Yeah, I mean, one of the arguments for it put forward is that, we have this time now where, for example, the Champions League final, they said that they're hoping to host it on August 29th. If this European season, the upcoming European season is written off, like there's no Champions League, no Europa League, and it's moved forward to next year, at least then it does give the Russian Premier League, a time to have a champion by the end of this year and then start off new next year. So have the remainder of the championship in the autumn. So kind of go, oh, here we go. We did it before where they had a season and a half. A season and a half, a lot of clubs go to the wall and a lot of hardships as well. I mean, even a club who had quite substantial backing at the time, Sochi, they went. So if we look at it that way, the very, very simple, intelligent way of it, it does help the broad spectre. As Alexander mentioned as well, that it's Yevgeny Ginot, he was the one who was pushing for it so hard. The reason that he gave, and the sensible reason, is because you finish the championship in May, for example, and you have pretty much the bulk of your team to start in the Champions League, Europa League. That's only, as you said, a very, very few clubs, 5 clubs from Russia, for example. And when there was a winter season, Russian clubs didn't do that badly. So I think a winter league would align it well with the Nordics, would align it well with other leagues as well. I mean, for Ireland, it has meant a huge boost in our European performances. Especially since it came in, we've had 2 teams qualifying for the Europa Cup, or Europa League, group stages. So it does make sense. Before we move away to USADA, Andrew, one funny story about darts, because darts now, they have a virtual tour online, but there was a little bit of a hiccup with one of the players.
Well, yes, I personally, I think it's a relatively innovative idea to keep the sport going. People like to watch it. So the PDC Tour have made a home tour where players are streaming their own darts from their own home, but in actual competition. Gary Anderson, a former world champion, had to withdraw because his Wi-Fi connection at home wasn't strong enough to stream a live video of him throwing darts at his board. So it's a story that I think is nobody's losing from this. It's not putting anybody at risk. It's quite the opposite. It is giving people something to watch. But Gary Anderson having to pull out is a bit of a, I wouldn't even say it's embarrassing, because people are fully understanding and aware of the fact that this is a very impossible time. But you would have thought somebody who does earn considerable money from prize money would pay for the best Wi-Fi possible, but apparently not. But darts is ongoing. It's just not quite the same with all those delightfully behaved, beer-swilling fans, shall we say, in their thousands chanting. But it's something.
Yeah, well, it's better than nothing. Okay, we are coming towards the end of the show. We want to address one for the next about 5 minutes. USADA. Now, of course, Travis Paper Tigers, he's the head of USADA. Of course, USADA is for profit, purely for profit. They don't do this in good soul and heart. They don't test the NFL, NHL, MLB, NBA, any major sports, college sports, high school sports. They're not allowed to touch them. Why? First of all, because no one respects them or likes them. Second of all, because there's too much money to be lost if there's actually proper testing and so on. And usually they kind of self-administer their own tests and look after themselves. And a player gets done for steroids, he'll get 2-game ban in the NFL, for example. So they're not like, they're persona non grata, and people, anyone I've interviewed from NFL or NHL or even NBA, they just kind of laugh about it. They're like, oh, your salary is just a joke. Now they've come up something that the New York Times, which seems to be the mouthpiece for a lot of what they're doing, partner in crime, you could call them. They basically said that for many months they've been testing or laying the foundations for virtual testing. What's virtual testing? Basically, the athletes, in the comfort of their own home, have a test, and they collect their own urine or their own blood. Now, the blood is taken in front of a Zoom or FaceTime. So basically sitting here and you take your blood, and a tester is watching remotely, wherever it may be. Great. Urine is taken in private. Now, it's mostly urine samples that are being used, so I mean, this is a bit doesn't look well. There's no privacy in urine testing. Normally, they're standing there looking at you. Okay, they're watching you, because there's so many tricks that have been used from fake penis to a bag of urine hidden inside a body crevice and cavity, and it's just insane what athletes will do to cheat the system. You're sat there going, it doesn't matter. You just go in and just send us in whatever it is. So then you seal it up. You show you're sealing it up, and you send it to Travis and his merry band of outlaws. Are athletes happy? You bet they are. They're delighted. And plenty of US Olympic hopes were eager. This is what he told the New York Times, eager to sign up for the pilot project. Of course, Katie Ledecky, who I mentioned at the start of the show, who has very questionable background and people she worked with, and her, she's multiple world record holder. I think she won 5 Olympic gold medals. So she's beaten all these dopers out of sight, but she's clean because she's American. She's skipped a number of tests, but she's okay. She's very sickly, but she's still okay. She hasn't failed tests that we know of. Alison Felix, the athlete, another question when it was there, is there. And so basically Tiger said, we've been talking about this and laying the foundation for several months. COVID put that on fast forward and allowed us to roll it out. Okay, so Ledecky said she feels very comfortable using it. And it's quite insane. There's all these safeguards and so on, but we know that that's a nonsense. Andrew, I've explained the situation. Does it make sense?
It makes sense. I understand exactly why they're doing this, because they get to pat themselves on the back and say, "Oh, look at us, aren't we being lovely and responsible?" I mean, apparently, this will help them get an idea of who may have fallen through the cracks. Forgetting to mention the fact that they created the crack of no testing for a short period. Well done for possibly getting an idea of catching who's fallen through the cracks that you yourself have created. Well done, brilliant. Well done, Mr. Target. I mean, I actually genuinely struggle to understand the sheer stupidity of anybody who reads a headline of self-administered testing. I mean, that is about the most oxymoronic, stress being on the moronic part of that word, concept I've ever come across in my life. You're watching somebody take a blood test. Wonderful. And that blood has to be sent somewhere. I'm assuming these athletes aren't setting up their own laboratories in their own homes.
No, they're sending them in, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming they're sending them in. So do they have to Zoom prove what they put it in the right envelope and follow the Zoom camera with the envelope all the way to them? I mean, the mind boggles on it. And the fact that this is being reported seriously, with a straight face, without anybody, so far anyway, actually questioning, well, hang on a minute, what the actual, I won't say the word because we're broadcasting, but the mind boggles, Alan. I mean, if you've got somebody in a normal testing period saying, okay, here is the test, I'm completely clean because of TUEs. Well, okay, there's at least a vague attempt to pretend that you are testing properly. This isn't even that. I honestly think they're just having a laugh. They're saying, you know what, let's see how ridiculous we can make it and how much we can get away with.
This is, I mean, it seems such a disgrace, and that the fact that they're even mentioning this, I mean, this comes from one person who did this on a criminal enterprise. Grigory Rodchenkov. He did this with his athletes. He did it with UK athletes. He did it with US athletes. He did it with Russian athletes, where they would send their blood and urine samples to him for testing to see where they were on their cycle. So whether they could be popped or not. So he would advise them on this. Not just him alone. This is done by other labs as well. This is done by universities in America. This is done by American football teams. This is done by soccer teams, where they test to see, will they get pinged for testosterone, for EPO. So this is like, Rodchenko's there, who of course we know that his story, he made a lot of money from selling his story to the New York Times. New York Times are working hand in hand with USADA. And the absolute criminality of this whole enterprise. And again, as you said, they're saying with a straight face. It's not just oxymoronic, it's just plain ridiculous. Like, I mean, my mind was blown when I read it. It's like, no, wait, hold on. This is April Fool's? Couldn't be for real. But
right.
They're serious. Double N, self-administered drug tests. Is that a bit odd?
Well, if I say it's odd, it will be like, I'd give it a compliment. Like, to give an example, I'm not an athlete, so I wanted to change a slight detail in my passport details yesterday. Yeah. I called my mobile operator, and they refused me to do so. I said, come on, I can zoom, I can like take a photo, take a picture with my passport in front, and they just said, no, we cannot do that. Like, if you want to test, you have to come, and we have to see, we have to confirm that it's you, like, who's trying to do that. Like, if such a level of testing, so to say, is being implemented in such a small, like, live detail as changing a mobile operator or inserting some detail. So, like, what Andrew just mentioned is just, it has to be a joke. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just a disgrace. I mean, and one thing as well, which I thought of just now, was that you make your sample and you miss to seal it up and so on and so forth. It's so easy to go, oops, I did it again. I fell or slipped and so on and so forth. Or my Wi-Fi is very, very bad, so I can't Zoom. What do I do? My Wi-Fi is not working. I'm home, but my goodness, like, I didn't pay my bill last month or wherever. I mean, there are some normal excuses. As you said, getting aside from the TUEs, which is legal cheating for most of them, for Ledecky, for Biles, for Felix, for so many of them. You know, the British cycling team are just already, they should be in some special category. This is insane. Okay, folks, we're going to have to go away because we're almost out of time. So I'll just say again, happy Easter, Nazar, and have a great week.
Happy Easter to everyone. Thank you.
Andrew, happy Easter out to you, men. I hope you're going to paint lots of eggs today.
Oh, certainly, well, Christos, yes, and all that. Lots of Coolidge to be eaten.
Good. Okay, folks, we're going to go away. Of course, we'll be recording again this week, but just to say thank you very much to the guys today. Great job. And yeah, so we had our little bit of a rant for Sunday morning, but now we're going away. We're going to relax and eat some Coolidge, eat some cake, and have a cup of tea. Wish you all well. And again, take care. We're going to get through this together. We're going to have a lot of our fun. So talk to you all very, very soon.